Good morning, good morning. Welcome to this month's edition of Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation's third Wednesday Parent Resource Chat. My name is Thomas Robertson, better known as Duke, and I am the Technology and Metrics Director for Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation today. And joining us, we have Ms. Bettina Campbell, who is the Social Services Coordinator. Now, normally she would be the one that's hosting the show, but since it is Men's Month, we decided to give her a break this month. And I hopefully do as well a job as she does on a monthly basis. But let's move forward. We recognize our executive director, Dr. Michael O'Miner, and our project director, Sister Lottie Miner. In addition to the Zoomcast, we are restreaming today's webinar on our Oak Hill Regional CDC and Healthy Kids Mississippi Facebook pages. So please feel free to share on your social media pages as well. So, helpful services for the month of June. June 1st was National Cancer Survivors Day. National Men's Health Week was June 2nd through the 8th. June 9th through the 13th was Community Health Improvement Week. The National Cancer National Health Fair is June 16th through the 19th. It is also Fireworks Safety Month in the month of June, and that extends to July 4th. And June 27th is National PTSD Awareness Day. As always, each of these awareness events are important and you should make an effort to learn more about them. However, today we will be discussing National Men's Health Month. Men's Health Month in the United States is observed every June. This month aims to raise awareness of the same health concerns of Men's Health Week, but lasts the whole month. At every stage of life, men are encouraged to consider three equally important aspects of their health. That's physical health, mental health, and social connection. Men's Health Week and Men's Health Month raise awareness of how these aspects work together and remind men to take charge of their health. During this month of June, men are encouraged to set goals for their own health and wellness and begin to create a roadmap for achieving those goals. But before we start our presentation for today, I encourage you to please share this webinar on your social media platforms. Now, wherever you may be, if you're watching us on Zoom, text a friend, text a family member, tell them to join this live, send them the link. If you are tuning in on social media, please hit the share button to encourage everyone that's on your friends list to tune in, especially all the men in your life. After you have done that, then make sure you have your pencil and paper to write down your questions, concerns, as we will be sure to save time for answering any questions you may have about this presentation. So, our guest panelist today is Dr. Henry L. Tucker, MD. Unfortunately, Dr. Tucker is having a technical issue with his camera, so he will not be able to show his face, but you can be heard loud and clear. Dr. Tucker completed his undergraduate studies at Kent State University, graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology with a minor in chemistry in 1971. He received his Doctor of Medicine degree from Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee in 1975, and completed an internship at Hurley Medical Center in Flint, Michigan, with a keen interest in the complexity of diagnosing and managing chronic illnesses. Dr. Tucker completed a residency in internal medicine at Howard University in 1978. His entire career has been in the clinical practice of adult primary care in both group and private practice and office and hospital settings, predominantly in Cleveland, Ohio. Dr. Tucker retired in 2024. Congratulations on that retirement, Dr. Tucker. He is currently
Thank you.
enjoying his grandchildren and great grandchildren, hiking and serving in church and writing. Dr. Tucker states that he remains committed to patient centered care because he believes that medicine is as much as an art as it is a science. His mantra is counsel on health, strive for the state of wellness through proper nutrition, challenge of body, discovery of mind, and spiritual fulfillment. Today, to teach and share with others as we continue to learn. Welcome, Dr. Tucker. So let's start this discussion by asking the first question. We often hear that phrase, age ain't nothing but a number, tossed about in conversations about what men should or should not do at a certain age. Yet when it comes to men's health, is that saying really true, Dr. Tucker?
Well, thank you very much. And first of all, again, my apologies for not being able to at least share my video. I don't know what the problem is from my um, on my end technically, but my apologies to all. And it is my privilege, of course, to share uh, what I can as far as health and wellness with, of course, anyone who cares to hear. So I consider it an honor just being here. So thank you very much. Um, and just to go directly to your question, um, age is a number, yes, but it's not just a number. So I think that God has only given us so much time here, and all living matter has to be subject to that time. And we know that things change over time. So we should respect our age. We are definitely not going to do at 48 what we may have done at 18. We're not going to perform in the same way athletically at 35 as we probably did when we were 21. Um, we are going to have issues that come up over time that are based on time, and that is certainly our health and how we conduct ourselves in managing our health is going to change when we are at our youth. We have a lot of reserve and a lot of resilience, unless, of course, we have been uh, unfortunately afflicted with a condition that is out of our control. But for the most part, when we are young, we've got a lot of reserve and resilience. That is going to take its toll as we get older. Uh, and so we have to invest our time and effort into our health. And as we age, the number does matter.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Tucker. According to Daryl Wade, founder of Black Men's Health Wellness, a community initiative to help Black men's health, wellness, and health, Black men's wellness has evolved literally to solely focus on awareness around hypertension, heart disease, and chronic disease. What do you say, Dr. Tucker?
Well, thank you. That is a good question. I've only recently become aware of, I think, the founder, Daryl Wade, and Black Male Wellness. Um, and as I reviewed it, I think that probably we may have to sort of flip it around a little bit and say that perhaps when any program starts out, its mission oftentimes must be focused. And I get the impression that when he founded this, it was based on certain things that may have happened with either his family or someone close, where they were impacted by certain cardiovascular diseases, as we know that can happen with many of our families. And therefore, the focus was certainly on hypertension, diabetes, making men aware of those particular problems because there's no question they do impact a significant part of our population and especially the Black male population. We do know. And so I think that that was the focus, but I get the impression that over the years they have expanded to include uh, mental health, to include working with juveniles, especially in the criminal justice system. And so I think that this is probably a good program that certainly still focuses on that, but I think they've expanded to say there are other things that are involved there, and especially in terms of our uh, the impact of a lot of what's going on in our environment that impacts our health.
So, what are some of those factors that determine whether a man is at risk for chronic conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, or heart?
Uh, Let me begin with this. Those are certainly that's a good question. Um, I think it's usually the easiest to define our terms because we throw the term health and wellness around and use them interchangeably. And I think we need to kind of determine what that really is. Um, Most of us are under the impression that health is just the absence of disease. And um, and if we're feeling good, we're healthy. Um, and I think that we need to kind of expand that. In fact, like even the World Health Organization has sort of gotten a simplified definition that they have used over the years, and I'm trying to pull that up now to you. My apologies, I'm still having a little technical difficulty here. Uh, Here we go. Okay. Their definition had started out and has been so for, I think, since the past 30 years that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease. And I think that is often a good way of putting that because many times I have so often seen in my own practice the difficulties that we have with having, and especially us men, defining where we are with our health, that if we're feeling okay, that everything is okay. And so I think we need to kind of say, we need to expand where we are with how we perceive our health to be. Um, Wellness is involving those kinds of activities and behaviors that we engage in to maintain our health. It's sort of like what we do with our homes or our car. If we can have certainly a new car that's in the greatest shape, but if we don't change the oil and uh, change the tires and rotate them and do the maintenance things, we're going to have a problem. And that's the way our health is also. So I think when it comes to engaging in those things that men need to do, many of those things involve things that are very simple. We need to make sure that we're eating properly. We need to make sure that we engage in a reasonable degree of exercise. We need to make sure that we get our reasonable degree of recreation and amusement. And of course, avoid some of those vices that naturally are going to get in the way. These are things, of course, like the use of substances and um, a sedentary lifestyle, things like that. So I don't know whether I've answered the question completely or not, but um, hopefully
You,
this forms just a little bit of a backdrop.
you did an amazing job on answering that question, Dr. Tucker. So you were talking about the eat properly, exercise, and recreation of amusement. So to help provide the best care as men reach a certain age or certain stages of life, are there recommendations what we should do medically to care for our bodies?
Uh, yes. Um, I think that one of the problems that we have, and especially I think as a races of color, and I'll qualify that because um, during my course of practice, I have provided medical care for all different races and cultures and ethnicities. And I will say that certainly some of the problems that we face are not necessarily unique to us, not necessarily unique to um, the African American population. Um, but basically, for any, and especially us as African Americans, if if we could certainly engage in some of the basic lifestyle measures as early as we can, the better. Now, I say that with tongue in cheek because that's the hardest thing to do to get your 15 or 16-year-old, teenager to eat right and get some regular exercise outside of athletic competition. And as we get older, those things can become rather routine and secondary. Most of us, of course, get much more concerned about our health when we get to the problems where we're to the point where we're getting some aches and pains and middle age is creeping in on us, and then we start to get some concern. And sometimes even then, if we're feeling good, we don't. Um, so most of the time, I would certainly recommend that uh, if you can, get your checkups, even as a young man who is in his 20s, to at least get a well check every 2 or 3 years. As we get older, especially Black men, when we get into our 40s, the things that we used to recommend as proactive points of wellness, these are things like getting your prostate check, your colon check, checking for your blood sugars, getting your blood pressure checked, to not wait until the age of 50. We should be doing it in our early 40s. We strongly encourage Black men to come in when they are anywhere between 40 and 45 and start getting their prostate checks, getting their colon checks, definitely getting their blood pressure checks, getting their blood sugar checks, getting their cholesterol checks. If they have a family history, certainly if there is early disease in the family, we're talking about we've got a family member, especially what we call first order family members. Now, first order is uh, a mom, dad, a sibling. Second order is grandparents, cousins. But if we've got early disease, if we've got someone who is diabetic and they were diabetic at age 30, and this was a brother or sister or a parent, we should be getting those blood sugars checked even in the 20s. If there is obesity, we should be getting the blood pressure and blood sugars checked very early on. If we have a history of early colon cancer, which often we are seeing now, and of course, I say this because, all of us have been touched. If we have any family at all of us have been touched by these conditions at one point or another. We should be getting those checks early on, that when we hit that 35 to 40 plus, we probably should be getting them checked. but definitely, especially for many men, between 40 and 45, getting those early screenings are essential.
I definitely concur with that, Dr. Tucker. Learning about your body early, if you know your family has a history of those type of diseases. I'm no medical doctor. I'm just speaking on from what I've experienced in life.
Absolutely.
Going to that next question of as men experience these changes throughout their lives, how can they be proactive about their health? I know you were talking about the exercising and whatnot, but what other things that they could do to be more proactive?
Well, that certainly is it. And again, I will indicate that the good Lord has made things very simple for us. Basically said you don't have to do much. You just have to do it regularly. You have to be somewhat disciplined. So definitely, I think that when it comes to um, our general health, especially when it comes to our physical health, what we put in our mouths is important. So making sure that you have a good diet that is basically plant-based. And this is hard for many of us. Most of us who've had uh, family who come up from the generations uh, with putting the pig on the table,
Mm.
we have many times a hard time going to the apple tree and getting the apple off, rather than taking the apple and making the apple pie. So I think that we have to kind of make sure that we're at least doing some of those things and getting help with it. And we realize that sometimes there are difficulties in when it comes to um, getting proper nutrition. You know, if you live in a food desert and if you're struggling to survive and if you've got some financial issues going on, sometimes that can really be a tough thing. Um, and sometimes it's a matter of just the ignorance of it, you know, just that you just don't know. And certainly we need to help with educating, you know, our men to and boys to be involved in getting proper nutrition. When it comes to things like exercise, um, I often have to tell many of my men patients who come in and the young fellows, do not use athletic performance as a point of reference for challenging your body for general health. Uh, that's a different mode or a different ball game, to use a pun. Um, that many of us think that, you know, we have to go out and play a hard game of basketball to be in shape. We have to go to the gym and be able to pump, you know, 200 pounds to make sure that we're in good condition. No, sometimes some of the simplest things can be the best thing. If I can get somebody to go take a 30-minute walk every day, they're going to be in great shape as far as their long-term health goes. So sometimes it's the simple things. Um, the other is, of course, making sure that we address our mental and emotional health. Um, and the stigma regarding mental health is still a pervasive problem. We certainly now have a lot more um, in terms of the media, in terms of, okay, even though there's a lot of negative stuff out there, there are some positive elements out there addressing, even some of the commercials you see on TV addressing uh, um, the concerns about mental health and trying to help reduce the negative stigma that mental health has had. I think it is important for young boys and young men, and especially minorities, to go ahead and be cognizant of the fact that, yeah, there are times we have some problems. There are times that we need to go in and make sure that we are addressing those concerns that we have, um, and making sure that there is an environment created to allow the person to come in and feel comfortable in a situation where we're addressing mental health. Um, and so some of those things, those are some of the things that I think that we certainly that we need to do to be a bit more proactive about where we are with our health.
I love the way that you're answering these questions, Dr. Tucker, because they just continue to flow in to my next questions every time. You hinted on it, but how important is it for men to take an active role in their healthcare and why?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things that um, I will put it this way, one of the things that we want to do is to be functional. We want to be able to do the things that we would like to do. And I'll use this as an example. Um, I had a patient, and this is years ago, uh, and I could use many examples of what we're talking about, but a patient who came in um, with concerns about, uh, they were experiencing some fatigue and discomfort. The bottom line is that they wound up having hypertension. But in addition, they had elevated blood sugar. And I let them know that we have to be concerned about that. We got to treat your blood pressure. We've got to address your weight. We've got to make sure that that you're in the pre-diabetic phase. We need to address that, and to that you're going to have to sort of engage in some of the, in addition to taking your medications, because that's important. You're going to have to also change some of your lifestyle. And I say, well, what are you looking forward to do for the, well, I've got a grandson and I want to see that grandson graduate from college. And I said, well, if that's your goal, then this is the reason that you need to take care of your health right now. You need to make sure that you are in a position that if God gives you those days, that you can live long enough to see your grandson graduate from college, then you're going to have to invest in your health right now to make sure that that happens. And so that was enough to kind of motivate him to say, yep, I need to go ahead and change my eating habits. Yes, I will see the nutritionist. Yes, I will get some regular exercise. I'll get a trainer. I'm going to be taking my medication and I'm going to be keeping my follow-up appointments. That was enough to kind of say they had a why to engage in their health. And therefore, that was enough motivation to help him to um, get into the system and engage himself into the system well enough to do those kinds of lifestyle activities that would make it give him a better chance of seeing his goal. So hopefully that's answered a bit of your question.
Yes, and that did. Before I ask this next question, this is a question that everyone is going to need to take out their pen and paper if they haven't already to write this down because I know Dr. Tucker is going to do a phenomenal job on this question. Um, as you stated, being actively involved is critical. So, Dr. Tucker, can you please briefly identify 3 to 5 critical questions that a man should ask his doctor about his health care? This is going to be very important to the everyone is on the call. I advise you to write down these questions that Dr. Tucker gives, so that you can give to the doctors, so they can help you better understand what it is, the conditions that you may be in. Dr. Tucker?
Uh, and certainly I can appreciate that question. And believe it or not, it's a much more difficult question to answer than it may appear. And this is the reason. Most, most of us, when we go see a doctor, and even though we're talking about health and wellness, most of us don't go see the doctor because we are looking to be healthy. Now, I say that and I understand I may get some backlash on that. What we're looking for is to get a problem taken care of right now.
That's true.
We are looking to kind of go in and say, I'm hurting here. I've got something going on there. I don't feel well because the perception of us as physicians is that we are the managers and treaters of disease, okay? Not the managers of health and wellness. And and it's funny because, over the course of years that I practice, naturally when I went into the medical field, you have all these idealistic visions of what you're going to do and how you're going to help people, and all you need to do is do this, and everybody's going to do exactly what you tell them to do. And uh, basically, that does not happen. For many, if I get one patient out of 10 who actually follows my recommendations, I'm doing okay. When we go in to see a doctor, there is no question that you're not going to hear anything that a doctor tells you until that doctor has addressed what your basic concern is when you go into the office. So I say, anyone, when you're going into the office, to ask, write down your questions, whatever they are. Okay, is I've got this particular problem. I'm having these headaches. I'm having this particular concern. I'm having trouble, voiding, whatever it is. It's good to write down those questions that you have regarding that and any questions that you have around that. Now, when it comes to saying, what can I do to take care of my health? That is a good open-ended question to ask a doctor. If I have a patient coming in and they just ask me that, the doctor or any provider, and many times we're not necessarily dealing with a physician. We have what we call mid-level providers also. So you may see a nurse practitioner, you may see a physician assistant. If you're going in and saying, what can I do to take care of my health? That is a nice open-ended question to ask. What can I do to prevent certain conditions that I am at risk for? Meaning that if you already know that you've got a family history of diabetes, a family history of hypertension, a family history of strokes, a family history of cancer, then you go in and ask the doctor, what can I do to help with preventing or warding off any of these conditions? Those are good questions to ask. It's simple. It's easy. If I get, and I have had patients come in and they have addressed those particular questions, even though they may be the minority ones who do it. But when they come in, it allows me to really get them engaged in a proactive way of managing their health. When you go in, oftentimes, even if you're going in for a health check, many times in the doctor's office, they often will do a screening automatically. They do depression screening. They will ask questions in regard to any concerns that you have if you're already on medications. They will ask questions about your family history. And oftentimes, this gives the doctor and any of the personnel working with him or her the tools to help you engage in your health. So, those are just some of the things. And I hope I've answered at least some of the questions that you uh, uh, asked there in regard to what you can do when you go in the doctor's office.
Yes, you definitely did. If there's a role, what should a wife, spouse, partner, or family member play in helping a man to be more actively engaged in their health care?
Uh, this is an absolutely fantastic question. It is. And I will answer it like this because the answer is basically inherent in the question itself. There is no question, and studies have shown time and again that when there is a female presence in a boy's or man's life, that goes a long way to help them get engaged in both a better and healthier life and a longer life. And again, I appreciate how that question is because it does not have to be a spouse. I've had patients who come in, and I'll give a couple of examples. One was a diabetic male who had been very, very, how shall we say, lax in uh, coming into the office. Um, his wife came in with him the first time, and she basically uh, gave as much of the history as he gave that was much more helpful in terms of me being able to help him with his condition. When she could not come in with him, his sister came in with him. And so that did a lot. And over the course of 3 months, his blood pressure and his blood sugar was much better controlled. I've had men who've come in with a friend, a female friend, a cousin, and oftentimes it does not necessarily matter of the man's sexual orientation. I've had gay men who've come into the office and they've come in prompted by a female friend. One came in because his sister insisted that he come in to get checked. And we discovered that he had a high cholesterol, his blood sugar was elevated, and his blood pressure was elevated, even though he was feeling fine. I've had one come, and the reason he came in was because his wife nagged him so much, he just decided to come into the office just to shut her up. We found out that he had a nodule on his prostate. I sent him in to the urologist. He had prostate cancer, and it was caught early enough. And if it hadn't been for his nagging wife, he would probably have delayed coming in. And so there's no question that a female presence makes a significant difference in the health of men and boys.
So, to the ladies that have significant others, please make sure you push the man in your life to go and get checked out. so,
I, ab- Absolutely, absolutely. I think, in fact, most of the men who've actually come in through my practice, and I think I can say this safely, have often come as a result of just being, how should we say, motivated by some lady, female who was in their life.
Dr. Tucker, I know you have a health ministry at your church. Will you share a little bit about it and how important it is that churches be involved in helping us to be healthier in mind, body, and spirit?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Um, I think in um, I think culturally, and I'll put this in a broader context. I think culturally, uh, we can't say enough about the influence of the church in African American society overall, period. Um, Healthcare is no exception. Um, we have at our church certainly a medical board, which my wife is a part of, and of course, being the physician, one of the physicians in our church that we sort of assist in peripherally. Um, the medical board, of course, there basically addresses in a reactive way any issues that come up with any immediate health concerns in the church, and oftentimes we do because we have, of course, uh, members in the congregation who do have medical issues, and sometimes there have been urgent and emergent situations that have come up that the medical board, which consists of mostly nurses, um, nurse practitioners, who've been right there on the ball when it comes to helping out. But in addition, they also put on health fairs, often annually, sometimes biannually, um, and participate in various health venues that address many of the health issues in the congregation and in the community. Uh, in fact, one of the fairs that they had last year, I was to participate in, and it was focusing on men's health and wellness. Unfortunately, I had a death in the family and was unable to participate at the time. But one of my own urologist uh, who agreed to get involved and did a magnificent job in terms of addressing prostate issues in the health fair. So it was phenomenal. We have a grief ministry, a bereavement ministry. We have we can address mental health concerns, um, substance concerns. So there are organizations and resources available that can address some of these issues in the congregation that we have. And of course, not all congregations or realize may uh, be able to have the depth of resources we have. We have the counselors, we have clinical psychologists, um, two of them, in fact, who actually, as well as academicians who actually can help with the educational aspects of of health issues. And so it is very, very helpful both to our congregation and to the community with some of the resources that we have. For those of you who do not have certainly any of the professionals who may be in your congregation, uh, please, I'm sure that there are ways that you can access in your communities various organizations that may provide both educational and support in terms of health and wellness in your community. So, yeah, that's what we have in our church, and we are very, very blessed to have that.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker, for sharing that, for providing us an awesome presentation and starting point for the continued discussion. I hope you can stick around. We will field more questions during the Q&A session. But once again, we encourage you to share today's webinar in your social media network. Feel free to post questions or comments in Zoom chat or in social media comments. We would do our best to respond to each question. But before we open up for questions, do you have any last words that you would like to share, Dr. Tucker?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you very much. Um, yes, I would. One of the things that I think that we need to always address, and I was certainly unable to do it immediately, and that is that when we're looking at, especially when it comes to the health of our boys and men, um, there's no question that the impact of the acts of violence in our community, especially in regard to our young men and our boys, is a public health concern. And I can't emphasize that enough. We talk about certainly some of these more common health concerns individually, but I think that we have to consider the fact that some of these acts of violence, especially gun violence involving our boys and young men, is a health problem, is a public health problem, of one that is very, very difficult to address. And I'm not going to certainly sit here and say that I can have certainly any of uh, any solutions that are the panacea of all of this. I know all of us have been impacted by, in some form or fashion, with violence with against our young men. But that is an issue there and something that definitely needs to be addressed when it comes to the health of our young men. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Tucker. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Now it's time for our Q&A period for social media, or if you're on Zoom, please feel free to raise your hand or put your questions in the chat, and we will um, ask Dr. Tucker to answer those questions. And since I have the open mic right now, Dr. Tucker, I have one particular question for
Yes, sir.
you. What do you say to that man, specifically the black man that is scared to go to the doctor because they're afraid of what the doctor will find? That is
That
something that I hear all the time. Why men, specifically black men, afraid to go to the doctor? What do you say to them?
that is an excellent question. It is. And it is a one that has certainly been a problem over all of the 50 years that I've been in medicine. And it is also one that is difficult to answer because I think the fear of the doctor, the only, I guess probably the only other area of specialty in health that causes more anxiety than going to the doctor is probably going to the dentist. And, and so it is difficult. Um, I think that one of the things that I would say, if for anyone who has, and especially you're right, especially men and even young men who are scared to go in to see the doctor, is to take somebody with you. Take somebody who you trust with you, because we realize going into the doctor's office is an anxiety inducing event for anybody. I don't know anyone who wants to go into the doctor's office for vacation and amusement. It just doesn't happen. Most of the time, when you're going in there with fears and concerns about your health. You're going in there with fears and concerns about whether or not you're going to be accepted and understood and the that you're not going to be judged in a negative way. I think those are anxieties that anyone has in going in to see the doctor. And you're right, especially men. So I would say that for many men, if there is a concern, there's nothing wrong to say, hey, can you come in with me, to the doctor's office? Um, and at some point, unfortunately, I hate to put it like this, but sometimes you just got to suck it up and just go. You may be scared, but life is full of fears and worries, and our Lord Master doesn't want us to worry about everything. There's a time in which you just have to go. But it would be kind of helpful to say, if you get a friend to kind of come along with you. And I've had that happen to some patients. I had one young man, he's a tough young, he was incarcerated, he was in his early 20s. He was deathly afraid to come into the doctor. Now, this young fellow was he would go out and fight two or three other fellows, but he was scared to come into the doctor's office. He was one who came in with his girlfriend, and she helped him, came into the office with him, and he was, after we had uh, gotten him settled down, realized and tried to make him feel comfortable, he was willing to come back. But we understand it's not easy. But that's one of the things that I can think that some men can do to kind of avoid some of their anxiety about going in.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Tucker. That was just a question that I knew I had to ask you during this men's month of health.
That's okay.
Uh, If there's anyone else that would like to ask a question, we still have a couple of minutes before we sign off. And let's check social media to see if there's any questions. If no questions, once again, Dr. Tucker, thank you so much. You have shared a lot, and I know we have learned a lot today. Now it's time for our friendly reminders. The next Ask Mary and Pat Zoom webinar is June 30th at 6 p.m. Let's Talk Real Estate with Area Mays is Thursday, June 26th at 11 a.m. Finally, our next third Wednesday parent resource chat is Wednesday, August 20th, 2025. So let's make note that there will not be uh, uh, third Wednesday parent resource chat in the month of July. And as I was telling you about the announcement, we just had a question come in, Dr. Tucker, that I want to get to. How early should you start with young men and getting them to get on a regular schedule of checkups and screenings?
Again, that's a good question, and thank you. And I will sort of touch back to a response to that a little earlier. Um, actually, I could put it that it's never too early. I think for many of, especially our young Black men and boys, if we can get them to come in even during late adolescence, that would be good. And one of the reasons for that, well, some of the main reasons for that is the pervasive um, genetic uh, and environmental impacts that we have on our health these days, and especially that which impacts um, African American men and boys. Early cardiovascular illness and death. Um, we oftentimes, when we looked at conditions like type 2 diabetes, which originally we only thought happened in the maybe late 30s or 40s, now we're seeing them in adolescents and even children. the maturity onset diabetes, and much of that has to do with, of course, things like obesity early in childhood and stuff like that. We oftentimes, if we can get our young men and our boys to come in even at 18 or 19, even if it means using a springboard from doing an athletic physical to establish a relationship with a healthcare provider. There's nothing wrong with that. Definitely, anytime that we're getting into our 30s and early 40s, we probably should always pay attention in a proactive way to our health. But it's never too early, really, to get them in to see the doctor on a regular basis.
Thank you for that, Dr. Tucker. And once again, it's never too early. Make sure we put that out there. Again, reminders, the next Alex Mary and Pat webinar is June 30th at 6 p.m. The Let's Talk of Real Estate with Ari Mays is Thursday, June 26th at 11 a.m. The next third Wednesday parent resource chat will be in August 20th, and that will be about parents and youth for returning to school. Please be sure to join us and encourage friends and family members to listen also, because you do not want to miss this important information. You may learn more about us at oakhillregionalcdc.com and www.healthykidsms.org. Once again, I want to take this opportunity to thank Ms. Bettina for allowing me to fill in for her for this month. We acknowledge our executive director, Dr. Michael O'Miner, and this has been a production of Oak Hill Regional Community Development Corporation, belonging, building, and bridging in the Mid-South region and across the state of Mississippi. Um, if you're still on Zoom, please stick around and we will have a follow-up, but we will sign off now on social media. So until next time, take care, peace and blessings.